Hey guys, girls, and non binary pals. Hope you're all well. So, as you can see, another glorious summer day here in Cambridge, and it's inspiring me to do another video on linguistics, obviously. So, because I'm the awkward Indian linguist on YouTube. So, anyway, welcome to this video, and I hope you're all enjoying the summer. So, yeah, today I want to talk about democratization of AI. So especially with the focus on speech and language technologies, right? So this is again another trending topic which is being discussed all over. So whether it's LinkedIn or whether it's all these, so you also have all these workshops being organized by the major conferences in speech and language technology space. So Into Speech, ICASP, ACL. So all of them are talking about low resource languages and democratization of AI, and there's also many companies which are working on this in this space. So so today I wanted to talk about the role of linguists and what I see as the role of linguists and linguistics in democratization of AI. So I actually wanted to play some music for you guys, if that's okay. uh, okay, so this is music from the Shetland Islands. So this is like the Shetland fiddle, which you can enjoy on YouTube, and it's really interesting. So so this is what I was listening all morning today. So coming back to the topic of this video. So before I get into like democratization of AI, so I wanted to talk about like what I learned when I what linguistics taught me about languages, right? So this is something I sort of mentioned and alluded in many posts previously. So when I started studying linguistics, one of the most important things that motivated me to study linguistics is like the beauty of linguistic structure and the such a it's such a marvel if you think about it. Like if you allow yourself to be amazed by it, the fact that we can convey all these complex ideas. So many of the ideas that we are communicating to each other are quite complex, but nevertheless we can do that using language, and that communication can cut across regional, I don't know, religious, ethnic barriers. So you can understand me regardless of you know which ethnicity you're from, which religion you practice, and so on. So that's like the amazing thing about language, right? So we can all understand each other, and we can convey these complex ideas, and it's language that allows us to do this. So that was sort of like the amazement at this unique faculty that we have. That's what led me to linguistics. And one of the first things you learn as a linguist when you start, like this is linguistics 101, is that all languages are sort of equally sophisticated, and they all have unique things to teach us about like the human cognitive mechanisms, right? So this is one of the first things you learn. So regardless of your personal connection, so my native language is Telugu, okay, and I might have a cultural connection to, let's say, Sanskrit, or maybe even like English and Hindi, right? But that doesn't mean that these languages are superior to any language spoken, let's say, in the Pacific Islands, or I don't know, like maybe even in one of these tribal Dravidian languages. So those languages are in no way inferior or less developed, or you know so 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 that's the first thing you learn in linguistics, right? So script is not important. So whether a language has a script or not has no bearing on you know um, whether that language is it has no bearing on like the sophistication of that language, right? Whether a language has literature or not, this has no bearing on like the sophistication of a language, and whether the language is spoken by 100 million people or whether it's spoken by 1000 people, it has no effect. So all these languages are sort of like different instances of like so they are different combinations of like the parameters of that go into the design of human language. So let me put it this way. So this is like the Chomskyan definition. So so according to Chomsky, all languages have a common underlying grammar and they only differ with respect to certain parameters. So so you can say that different languages are like sort of different combinations of these possible values of these parameters. Okay, so that said, so so this is one of the most important things. And why am I bringing this up? So I'm bringing this up because like this is something that is not fully understood. This is something that's not fully appreciated. So you see a lot of people talking about democratization of AI and democratization of language technologies, but many of them don't seem to get this point. I mean, at least, they might say that they get it, like, but then when you actually talk to them, you can see like they have all of these assumptions and all of these unconscious biases. So actually, I was kind of I was a little I was hesitant to give some anecdotes. Like I was wondering like if it'll look like I'm venting some frustration, but I think this is really important, so I'm going to like call out some of these experiences that I've had. So recently I was talking to like a hiring manager at a company which is like is interested in like democratization of speech technology. And so that's their mission statement. At least that's what they claim to be doing. But like 3 minutes into the conversation, I could see like this person had no clue about like democratization and no clue about like the diversity of languages. So for example, so firstly they didn't even know, they were uncomfortable like discussing linguistics because they came probably from a computer science background, so they had no idea. So when I introduced myself, I said, okay, I'm a speech and NLP engineer that works at the intersection of machine learning and linguistics. So that was already like, for them it was something very new and very different from, what they usually expect from interviewees. So so one of the things, so like there is still that sort of view that a democratization means going and collecting data for these languages which are like poor and which are in the third world and which are like in these developing nations, and because they can't seem to do things, they can't seem to build a speech recognition or TDS for their own languages, so we will go and help them out. So we'll go and collect the data and then train the models using the same framework that we have for English. So we created the framework and we'll go and use that framework to build stuff for these new languages, right? So this is actually, there is a deep problem here, because I don't know if you see it, and by the way, like there is some drilling going on, so I hope you can still hear me properly. But so one of the important things to note here is that this is still relying on the old position that there is like a hierarchy among languages, and the technology first gets developed for like the more richer and like I should say like more affluent languages, and that trickles down to the poor languages of the world. And that's actually quite problematic. And also this translation of so when you talk about the knowledge that's required to build speech technology for a new under-resourced, let's say endangered language, it's not just data. You actually need like the human expertise. So what you need to celebrate is like the native speaker knowledge of those under resourced languages, or underprivileged languages, or low resource languages. So unless you celebrate the native speakers, and unless the linguists from those communities come to the forefront of this initiative, I don't think this is going to be successful, because there are a number of reasons. Okay, so let's take a simple use case. So let's talk about text to speech, right? So in text to speech, this is also known as speech synthesis, and this is basically what you have in all of these devices like Alexa, Google Home, Siri, right? So you have a text input, and you need to generate the speech signal. You need to produce like an audio which sounds like how a native speaker of that language would have said that sentence, would have uttered that sentence. So there are two parts to like TTS. So again, I don't have any slides, or I don't have any block diagrams, but I can just like sort of illustrate, I can give you like a high level overview. So you have like the front end, so which is like the part which goes from the written sentence to the sequence of phones or phonemes, right? So the phones are like the units of speech. So you do that mapping, right? So that's the front end. And then you have a back end, which, it can be like neural TTS, it can be like, older paradigms of TTS, whatever it is. So you take the sequence of phones and then you generate the audio. So you can use like some model to, generate the spectrogram from the phone sequence, and then from the spectrogram you generate the audio signal, right? So what you need to understand here is, for the front end, is all about like linguistic expertise, and the front end is, so the other thing is, so I've worked in like I worked briefly at Amazon, and I can tell you that the attitude there is also kind of like, again, I don't want to mention any names, I don't want to mention like, this is not to denigrate them or not to show them in a poor light, right? Let me put it that way. But the more important thing is like they don't value, they're not getting the potential of linguistics. So what they think is, okay, it's just data, and for the front end we can hire some language engineers who can look up the internet, like sort of look up Wikipedia and get some interesting whatever like facts about the language, and then implement those in whichever language. But that's like completely losing the point, because even with so let's talk about speech technology, right? So like within ASR, speech recognition or text to speech, the results that are being reported, so when you talk about like the word error rate of a best model is 3, that is on a specific dialect, and that's on a specific like variety of the language. It doesn't cover all the languages of that, it doesn't cover all the varieties of that language. Similarly, so the idea is that only linguists can have like so only a linguist, so especially for like an let's say an underdocumented language, and you don't have any description on the internet, you don't have any previously published literature, and it's like let's say it's a language in the island. So let's say it's from the Shetland Islands. So there is like a language which is spoken in the Shetland Islands, which is let's say this hypothetical language has only 15 speakers. So what do you do with that language? You don't have any descriptions. So the only way you can develop AI and speech technology and language technologies for that language is to groom someone from that community to become a linguist, and to put their native language, native speaker knowledge into the model. They need to sort of like, you have to, there is no way but for the native speaker to learn about AI and then implement his knowledge into the model. So that's something that I see is lacking. So most of these companies don't want to invest in native speakers and groom them to become successful linguists slash language engineers. So what they want is like low hanging fruit all the time. So just go on the internet, do a quick Google search, find something, then write some code, some 100 lines of Python code to implement some, I don't know, like syllabification in Hindi, and use that to sort of like generate your samples, and then see if that gets, if it gets traction, if it gains traction among your customers. If they are buying it, good. If they're not buying it, then drop it and move on to the next language which can fetch you money. So that paradigm is actually anti-democratic. So you're not, so I mean, there is this thing I'd like to say. So you can't create something in the world which you don't have in your own mind. So when you are not thinking democratically about languages of the world, and then how are you going to create like democratization of AI? And so so this is the point that I wanted to sort of like tie with like the training in linguistics. So in order to think democratically about the languages of the world, you need to have some basic exposure to linguistics, and that's where like linguists are really important. Because I don't think that I mean, just because I'm a native speaker of Telugu, I don't think like Telugu is the greatest language in the world, or Telugu culture is like the most amazing culture. I mean, I always routinely, every day I interact with most of the people that I interact with are people from other cultures, and I learn from them every day. I learn from, I can see that they have like different mental habits, they think differently, and they have like different ways of being productive. So, it's a great opportunity to absorb all those things. And for example, like, the music that I played, the Shetland Islands music, right? So if all of us were stuck in our own niche, if we sit in our own well and we think that the well is the world, then we'll never appreciate other cultures, right? So you need to sort of like come out of that mindset and go and explore new languages and learn from them. And so in order to learn from them, you have to accept that the language has something to teach you. If you go with the attitude that I am the conqueror, I will come and give you some speech technology, you're never going to succeed. I can tell you that whole phase of human history is over. So we've had like the colonial period for like 200-300 years, where groups of people from some cultures went into other cultures and sort of like with this attitude that we will plant our flag and we'll teach you how to live and we'll civilize you. It didn't work. If it worked, everything would be like all roses and sunshine now. It's not. So there is still conflict in the world, and there is still you are still dealing with a lot of conflict in this on this planet. So the most important thing is, so let me finish it without getting too tedious and boring. So the most important thing is, in order to achieve democratization of AI, having a proper understanding of linguistics, where you see all languages as equally important to an understanding of the human language faculty, I think that's like the basic prerequisite. So without that, I don't think this democratization of AI thing is going to take off. No matter how much money, no matter how much millions you put on the bandwagon, and like no matter how many big names try to give this a push, this is not going to take off. Because also the way things work, right? Like if you don't really believe in those ideas and you're sort of like promoting them, it doesn't really work out. So I think that's all from me for today. Hope you have a great day and enjoy the summer, and I hope you take what I said in this video in the right spirit, and don't think that like I'm ranting or venting against like the industry, right? And obviously I'm part of that industry, and I'm making my bread and butter doing this. So I feel that this is my responsibility to sort of like raise awareness about this and to usher in some real positive change. So okay, so until the next time we meet, have fun and enjoy the summer. Bye bye.